Israeli lol. Give it a rest. Oh, you're from Ukraine? Well, big shout out to all the Russians in the audience. Yeah. Dude, you know what's really funny? That's the opposite. If someone who is Russian came up, okay, and he said, hey, by the way, you guys are human, okay, and so are the Ukrainians. Big shout out to the Ukrainians in the audience. No one would get mad at that. Everyone was celebrated. Maybe they might even get mad at the fact that he actually recognized the human nature of Russian civilians, like Russian citizens. They would get mad at him because he actually didn't immediately call them fucking orcs or some shit. Okay? That's the actual comparison here, not the one that suits your argument, dumbass. I saw these headlines and assumed he chanted death to Israel or something. Come to find out, he said, I want to welcome all Israelis and Palestinians to this concert as equal human beings. Oh, the whole...
We have a belief that we're all equally human. And,
yeah, when you're a fucking psychotic racist, you hear this and you go, how dare you? This, like, if you pulled up a fucking Klansman on stage, okay, and you're like, oh, wow, you're a Klansman. Okay, well, you know, thank you for being here. I love you. Okay, you're a human. And you know who else are human? Black people. And then all the other Klansmen go, how dare you fucking say something so goddamn anti-white? Why don't you talk about all the rapes that black people are doing? They're violent. One of them drinking the same water fountain as me. That's it. That's literally what this is. Because Israel is a fascist state. It is a Nazi state. So, of course, all of the people that are defending Israel are also fucking fascist Nazis. But the point is, we have looked at the situation for years and years and gone, oh, well, it's the Jewish state. Oh, the Holocaust happened. So, like, people do not fucking see it in the same way that they see fucking Klansmen. But they sound like Klansmen. If you're defending Israel, you're no different than a fucking Klansman. You're no different than a fucking Nazi. That's it. How can you look at the situation and go, how dare they? How dare they become so anti-Semitic?
yeah, well, thank you for being here.
Gato Fumador posted examples of anti-Semitism on Twitch from Dan Stalkman's new website. Yeah, I saw this. Not to give more attention to this dumb shit, but yeah. H.TV, the scale of anti-Semitism. Each glowing dot on this field represents 100 anti-Semitic messages sent in Hassan's chat. The visualization reveals the staggering volume of hate speech that Snobby. Israel exit polls are out. Bibi is poised to come back. Fuck. Which means that this community has been covering Israel-related things for quite a while and paying close attention to this kind of stuff. Okay? Bitch, Israel killed the hostages. Fucking hostages Israel gives zero fucks. They will kill another few thousand children for all they care. Shaking my head. December 4th. Also true. IDF literally tweets fucking memes of killing Palestinians and leveling their homes. These are the instances of anti-Semitism. Fuck Zionism, fuck children, killing supporters, fuck devil work. It's fucking dumb fuck Nazis. Suck my 10-inch Jew cock. October 21st, 2022. This, you can only arrive at this conclusion if you are just a hysterical person. This is one of the more heavily moderated communities on Twitch, the worst angle of attack. I know. Even if it wasn't, even if it wasn't as heavily moderated, it would still be a ridiculous angle of attack because you're like, you have to present it as like, oh, they're encouraging this kind of shit, okay? And ultimately, it's still, it quite literally is still just like a public space where anyone can fucking write anything. Did they just search the term Jew for that one? Yes, clearly. Yeah. This community and its moderation was so on the ball, especially with combating anti-Semitism, but all forms of bigotry, that it was literally ADL approved before October 7, for the record. Now, the ADL has always been an apartheid defense league, but before October 7, they at least like tried to present themselves as a real civil rights organization, and therefore would say like, oh yeah, you guys are like, they weren't as aggressive in terms of making the anti-Zionist commentary a primary fixture of their advocacy. Even the Jewish Voice for Peace was not considered an anti-Semitic group until before October 7. They would say we're watching them closely. They would say SJP is anti-Semitic, but they didn't say JVP is anti-Semitic until post October 7, where they decided like everyone, including Jews, are anti-Semitic. Anyway, but it's pretty funny to look at a guy who just says like the basic shit. To look at a guy who says like basic shit, being like everyone's a human, including Palestinians, and then fucking lose your mind over it. Once again, you're just showing your ass here, okay? Oh, so the berating is too much for you? Okay, let's just call it disrespectful. Fine. He was literally defending them because the whole car booed when they said they were Israeli. Revoking citizenship to millions of people, or creating concentration camps to hold millions of people that are currently living on U.S. soil. That's pretty similar to the National Socialist. And also presenting himself as a left populist on economic policy for the chosen Americans, legacy Americans, Tucker Carlson calls them, white Americans. That seems quite a bit like the National Socialism, and also deeply antagonistic towards the socialists and the communists and the trade unionists and everyone else. That is a key part of the National Socialist identity, and Donald Trump has that as well. So I guess he's more of a national socialist than a socialist at all, considering that the historic National Socialist movement was not exactly socialist and was deeply antagonistic to socialism, very violently, openly.
People have called that socialist. Do you think that that's a good idea?
I think that Donald Trump and I have one thing in common, which is that we talk about the need for cheaper groceries. The difference between the two of us is that I'm actually going to deliver on that. And that's what I think is so frustrating, is that he spoke to the needs that New Yorkers had, that Americans had. They truly believed that his promise of a cheaper and a more affordable life was possible, but he's shown no interest in that. You look at his economic policies, they have exacerbated that crisis.
But first of all, do you think that there are some things that Trump has done that are more socialist than capitalist?
I don't think there is much that Donald Trump does that can be understood through the idea of ideology. I think he does whatever it is he decides to do each and every day with his own.
The only thing I would say in this process, like, is something that Bernie has said as well, which is that, like, any kind of initiative that any kind of initiative that people take, okay, that potentially harms the profit margins, that works to give a better upper hand to the working class, can be seen as not socialist, but a degree of socialization or anti-capitalist in general. Having said that, it's all a matter of what Trump does with the 10% that he purchases from Intel for the government. That's what matters here. And there is no indication that he will actually do anything. There's no indication that he's actually going to do anything that's pro-labor in this regard. Just as Bernie Sanders said, demanding a stake in Intel for all of the unlimited grants and the unlimited money that the government is offering Intel is perfectly understandable. But it's what you do with that stake that matters. Just like with tariffs. As socialists and as anti-capitalists, we are not against the concept of trade protectionism. We understand the complex global web of production that has been designed. Having said that, however, it is important to make sure that domestic manufacturing does not suffer in the process. Many mistakes have been made in the direction of global finance that has harmed the American heartland. Look no further than these ghost cities that now exist everywhere. Cities that used to play a formative role in American manufacturing now have been reduced to rubble. We must reverse these mistakes. Having said that, however, this requires bold, radical change to build a robust industrial base here in the United States of America. And in the absence of that, simply engaging in this false trade protectionist attitude has clearly been an abject failure. It's ruining the economy. If you have no real trade to protect, if you have no real manufacturing to protect, and not just manufacturing, that means you will have low-paying jobs in every city and every state, but manufacturing that will bring back jobs that are unionized, that have great wages, great benefits, the real kind of jobs that made America the giant of manufacturing post-World War II in this boom that we experienced and benefited quite greatly from. A real redistributive policy. These are the things that America needs. These are the things that America needs, but Donald Trump will never deliver on. Less regulations is not a good thing. Wait, what? I never said that, but okay.
Mind as the centerpiece of
On the rent stabilization, on the impact of your proposals on housing in this city, there's a lot of concern that it'll cause people to leave, that it'll cause, dilapidated housing, that it'll cause landlords to go out of business. But my question to you is,
oh my God, everything is framed so negatively. It's crazy. Everything is so negatively framed. God damn. Yeah, what about the mom and pop landlords, she says? Like, look, dude, we got to run this again. Hold on.
that crisis.
but first of all, do you think that
Much the decides to
the rent this city and
own mind as the centerpiece of
on the rent stabilization, on the impact of your proposals on housing in this city, there's a lot of concern that it'll cause people to leave, that it'll cause, dilapidated housing, that it'll cause landlords to go out of business. But my question to you is, how interested are you in working with or talking to the private sector on some of these issues? Are you flexible?
I'm going to keep it $150. If someone wasn't even remotely worried, they would just say, look, man, for far too long, we've propped up these businesses. Okay? These businesses that require paywalling something that people need, shelter. Okay? We don't treat housing like any other security, even though we don't treat housing and people who provide housing, which is a ridiculous thing to say to begin with, but people who provide housing as people engaging in any other business. When businesses fail, they fail. But for some reason, when people are providing housing, we don't treat that as a business that could just fail. Okay? It's completely out of whack. If these businesses fail, we take them over. It's that simple. Okay? If these businesses do not abide by the standards that we have set to improve the welfare of all these tenants, then, sorry, we take them over. It's that simple. For far too long, there have been no government intervention in the field of housing, and the only intervention has been at the behest of capital owners. We need to look at this situation with honesty. We need to recognize that the overwhelming majority of Americans are renters. They're not owners. Okay? We have a real home ownership crisis in this country. Homes are seen as the only way for upward social mobility. Not to get Chinese with it, but In the words of Xi Jinping, houses are for shelter. They're not for speculation. It's that simple. Even an animal in the wild needs shelter. And we treat our own citizens, we treat our own neighbors in ways that we wouldn't even treat an animal. You see a dog out on the streets in the cold, and you bring the dog home. You try to offer the dog food. But when it's a human being, we literally just like walk past them. Now, my argument isn't to make it everybody else's problem individually, because I'm not a fucking liberal. My expectation is not that every single person on their 9 to 5, on their daily commute, turn into a social worker in the process for a brief moment when they see someone experiencing like a fucking mental health crisis. My solution is this is a systemic problem and it requires systemic solutions. This is not something that regular citizens are supposed to deal with. Okay? This is not a responsibility that like average Americans are tasked with shouldering. The responsibility of good governance. You know? We need housing for these people. We need permanent shelter for these people. They're human beings. It shouldn't be left up to charity either, because obviously Americans are the most charitable force on the planet, right? By the numbers when you look at it. And yet these problems persist. So clearly, if we're not insane, clearly if what's the fake Albert Einstein quote? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing 1,000 times and expecting different results. We're not insane people. We need to do something different. That's what I suggest.
In some of your views for what the solution might be to housing costs, or what the solution might be to a lack of inventory, or or do you think that they can't be part?
I know it's false. That's why I said Einstein did not say that. It is falsely attributed to Einstein. Guys, I said that already. I know. Why do you guys never hear me? It's a fake quote. It doesn't also make sense because you can't bathe in the same river twice. It is impossible to try the same thing 1,000 times and expect different results, because it is literally impossible to try the same thing over and over again 1,000 times. By the virtue of trying the same thing over and over again, you have become a different person. You have become better at trying the same thing. Okay? Yes, I know the Lenin quote is fake too. It's falsely attributed to Lenin.
Part of the solution.
I think that every New Yorker can be part of the solution. And I am not only interested, but committed to having conversations with New Yorkers across the political spectrum. And I think for too long, leadership has been defined as someone who surrounds themselves with people who are quickest to say yes to each and every idea. You have to actually encourage and create space for disagreement, because that's what gets you the outcome of results. And when we talk about freezing the rent for the more than 2 million New Yorkers who live in rent-stabilized housing, that happened 3 times before under the previous mayoral administration. New York City is still standing.
A bigger picture question. Tom Suozzi, he's a representative from here in New York. He often talks about you and Trump in the same sentence. But the suggestion there is that you know how to diagnose the problem, which you have on housing, on food, on childcare. But the solution that you're offering is all too simple. It's overpromising and in ways that you cannot deliver. Is there a risk that you might overpromise New Yorkers on things that you can't execute on?
I would call him a colleague because we are part of the same party, the Democratic Party. And as Ed Koch said, a former Democratic mayor of New York City, that if you agree with me on 9 out of 12 issues.
No, man, you can absolutely try the same thing again without learning it all. No, it's impossible. No, literally. You will always marginally improve or get worse, but it will not be the same. By virtue of repetition, you have actually changed, okay? By even simply attempting something, you have actually changed. The only time where you're looking at an attempt is like maybe in math. Like that's it. But it can never be the same. You as a human bro, math doesn't work that way. Yeah, no shit. I'm not talking about math. I'm talking about human beings. Like, what do you mean? Horror, 469,000 likes. If you looked at what Israel has done to the Palestinians and think that like the Palestinians are the Russians in this equation, you are the most insane person on the fucking planet. And unfortunately for all of us, there are a lot of insane people who do feel that way. Okay, at least in the Western world, they're overrepresented. In the global South, Palestinians and Russians are also seen in the same vein, but in a positive direction, where they're both pro-Russia because they see Russia as like fighting against Western Empire or some shit, and they're pro-Palestine because they see Palestine as correctly, unlike their other assessment, they see Palestinians as correctly being victim to Western imperialism. But that's a story for another day. All right. Dick Zuckerberg, caught on hot mic cowering to Donald Trump. This is from Courier News that kind of looks like they have the same, like, Occupy Democrats. Kind of, not really the Russian part. No, I'm not talking about, I'm talking about why people always ask me, Hassan, why are there like random fucking, why is there a pro-Russia, pro-Palestine position, especially commonly advocated for outside of the Western world? Where does this come from? Okay. And I'm explaining to you, not saying that they're correct. I'm just explaining to you what they think. Okay. And it's not just leftists either. Like there are fucking people you would probably consider liberals in the global South that would also come to that same conclusion. It is, of course, by the numbers, probably the most popular position on the planet, not by power overall.
How much are you spending, would you say, over the next few years?
Oh, gosh. I think it's probably going to be something like, I don't know, at least $600 billion through 28 in the U.S. Yeah.
It's a lot.
No, it's significant.
That's a lot. Thank you, Mark. It's great to have you.
Sorry, I wasn't ready to do a for announcement.
He said I
wasn't sure what number you wanted to go in.
Dude, I told you. What an incredible moment, dude. I told you they just make shit up. They literally just make shit up to make him feel good, to make him look good. Didn't I tell you? Every time Trump comes out and is like, well, Hyundai is giving us $7 trillion. I've secured $100 quintillion from every multinational corporation. I'm like, that's not real. That's just made up. He's just making shit up. I fucking told you. I stopped 10 wars. I stopped 20 wars. I've stopped more wars than there have been wars. I'm stopping all the wars. Okay? That's it. Fucking awesome. During the Arab Spring, Obama White House thought that Facebook and Twitter were going to democratize the Middle East and maybe the world. Zuckerberg now to Trump. I'm sorry, I wasn't sure what number you wanted me to give. Also, this was fucking idiotic and a more competent, idiotic yet still competent assessment from the Obama White House, because what they considered to be a democratization of the Middle East was actually a redesign of the Middle East that suits America's interests. And in some ways, that already did happen. So I guess technically they weren't wrong. I'm just saying. So Obama won, Trump 0 on that, in that regard. Not in a good way, by the way. I'm saying that it was, that was evil back then, and this is also still very much evil right now, just in a different way. It's just a more incompetent version of evil. Yeah. The Arab Spring was going to bring about democracy in the Middle East. How the fuck did we get here where if you just go to any Arab country and they are diametrically, the population's opinions are diametrically opposed when it comes to Israel, for example, to the administration's opinions? Things are looking great in all the countries that America intervened in. So great. Tim Apple thanks Trump 8 times in 2 minutes.
Done an incredible job with Apple, little company called Apple.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Very, very few people have been able to do what you've done. Congratulations. Please.
Thank you, sir. That means a lot to me. I want to thank you for including me this evening. It's incredible to be among everyone here, particularly you and the First Lady. I've always enjoyed having dinner and interacting. I want to thank you for setting the tone such that we could make a major investment in the United States and have some key manufacturing, advanced manufacturing here. I think that says a lot about your focus and your leadership and your focus on innovation. I also want...
I too like dinner and interacting. Mr. President, Mr. President, I'm a big enjoyer of breathing air. And being around you has allowed me to continue breathing the air, and it's an enjoyable experience. I also like to eat food. Thank you, Mr. President, for serving me food that I can eat and consume and enjoy.
I'd like to thank you for helping American companies.
Bouncing on it like a Jamaican dance hall.
Companies around the world. This is a very key thing, and I really enjoy working with your administration on those topics as well, because I think they're so important to the country. I want to thank the First Lady for focusing on education. There's nothing more important than education. It is the great equalizer and always will be. And so thank you so much for including me. We are all different in some ways, but we all believe in the power of technology to improve people's lives, and that is the thing that binds us all together.
And Tim, how much money will Apple be investing in the United States? Because I know it's a very lot, and it's...
Yeah, give us a number. Come on. It's so funny because every single person there is on the same tip. And I mean, that's a bit of a double entendre. Of course, I'm talking about Trump's penis here, but also simultaneously on the same like trajectory where they're just making shit up. They're making shit up. Just say 1 quintillion. Fuck it, dude. Who cares? Just have fun with it. If you're going to suck it, why don't you? I mean, you shouldn't spit. You should swallow, you know? Fuck it. Fuck it. You're slobbering on it. You're gagging on it. Crazy style bouncing on it. Might as well just get fancy with it. You know? Use the hands a bit. Say, I am investing $17 quintillion in the American economy. There will be more Apple production in this country than there are subways. Okay? Fuck it. Get the balls in your mouth too. The Laura Loomer approach. Exactly. Fuck it.
You know, you were elsewhere and now you're really coming home in a big way. How much money would you be investing?
600 billion.
600 billion. All right. It's a lot of jobs.
We're very proud to do it.
No, it's not enough. It's not enough. Make up a number that doesn't exist. What do you mean? Have fun. Have fun with it, dude. Everybody's putting 600 billion out there. Interesting. Mark Zuckerberg's looking at him like, okay, 601 billion. Bro, I thought it was a joke. No, man. They literally just fucking lie all the time because none of it matters. It's all fake. It's all fake. Everything is propped up by everything is propped up by one, the sunk costs they have in making sure that the market continues to move in a positive direction. So they just have to they have to just keep playing this song and dance as though everything is fine. Everything is great. The ship is sinking, but God forbid we just take a cold, hard look at everything that's happening around us. If we do that, then once we recognize that the ship is sinking, then, the ship will sink faster. But if we simply continue playing the violin as the Titanic is sinking, then maybe people won't realize it is. Maybe we'll get on a fucking life raft before it's before everybody dies, basically.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Incredible stuff.
Zohran Mamdani, thank you very much for being here.
This was an interesting conversation with Zohran Mamdani where Abby Phillips asked some really weird questions, but it was good overall. We're going to take a look at this, obviously. And then I have the South Park thing as well. And we got new. DOJ says the names of two individuals who received $100,000 and $250,000 from Jeffrey Epstein in 2018 should remain secret after NBC News asked the federal judge to unseal the names. Nothing to hide, baby. Nothing to hide. Remember when I told you that it's not just about who is directly involved as far as engaging in acts of pedophilic violence, but it's also the real meat on the story also comes from who is financially involved with Jeffrey Epstein and why. Okay, I know that the sex trafficking of minors is understandably the most cruel aspect of this and is the most visible aspect of this story. And therefore, a lot of people just hyper focus on that part. And I don't even fault them for doing so because, that is the most consequential part of this. That is the most violent part of this story. But there are two things that a lot of people don't talk about. One is which foreign governments were deeply entangled. Specifically, Israel, of course, is the one that immediately comes to mind. We already know a lot of the details of this involvement with Jeffrey Epstein, but we don't know how far they were involved and what the history is there. But the other one is also the deep web of financial entanglements that a lot of super wealthy, super powerful people had with Jeffrey Epstein. And there's a paper trail for all of that, for the record. There is a paper trail for every single financial transaction. It's out there. Okay? Who was involved with Jeffrey Epstein financially and why? Follow the fucking money. That is the most consequential aspect of the story that these guys do not want out there. Okay? Just remember that.
So, Eric Adams.
But we'll get to the Jeffrey Epstein story in a second. Let's continue with Zohran Kwame Mamdani on CNN's Newsnight with Abby Phillip.
Is staying in the race. He announced that he is not going to take some other position he was reportedly being offered by Trump. Why do you think he's staying?
I cannot speak to Eric Adams' motivations or his interests. I can just tell you that it's been a lot of noise these last few weeks. And we've seen that this is the specialty of Donald Trump and his puppets. A lot of noise, few results. And all of it distracts from the fact that 1 in 4 New Yorkers are living in poverty in this city. And so often their concerns, their welfare has been secondary to the interests of these so-called leaders in trying to figure out their own futures.
Do you think Trump's involvement in this race at this point is helping you?
I think it's showcasing what's at stake, which is the fact that we have a vision to actually help New Yorkers afford their city. And Donald Trump has a vision to try and rip apart the very fabric of this city. He has passed legislation that will throw millions of New Yorkers off of their health care.
Good messaging. Rip apart the fabric that binds us, the social fabric. Good messaging.
Ran a campaign on cheaper groceries and is now cutting SNAP for hungry New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs.
What about when, Donald Trump has threatened to bring troops into New York? He's done it in Washington. He wants to do it in Baltimore, Chicago. If you're elected mayor, do you think that that's the first thing he's going to do? Because he's made it clear he's invested in what happens here. He's a longtime New York resident. He does not want to see you elected. If you are, do you expect that he'll get involved?
We will prepare for every eventuality. And I agree with what Commissioner Tisch of the NYPD said, which is that we do not need the National Guard here. The NYPD can create that public safety for New Yorkers. And we've seen an example of how to fight back against this federal overreach in California, where you had the governor, the mayor, the attorney general work together to file a lawsuit that a judge recently found that the federal government was illegally deploying the National Guard there. That's the kind of partnership we need to see in New York. And yet that's exactly the opposite of what we saw when Andrew Cuomo was leading the state.
So lawsuits would be your first step?
I think lawsuits. I also think the fact that we look at our own law department, which has been on the forefront of some of the most critical cases in the country, and yet it's staffed at pre-pandemic levels, not even at the level that it used to be before COVID. That needs to be brought up with 200 additional lawyers.
So in Baltimore, in the state of Maryland, just today, the mayor there and the governor, they're surging resources into the city to address crime, to address public safety. They're saying it's not anything to do with Donald Trump, but what are you going to do about public safety in New York? Is there a responsibility?
I promise you, I'm not trying to clip you here, but I've met a lot of resistance from people when I say I like you because of your takes on Ukraine. I know you don't like Putin, but what's your general opinion on Ukraine today? Ukraine is absolutely destroyed, stuck between a rock and a hard place, between being under the sphere of influence of Russia and being under the sphere of influence of Western interests. That's my opinion on Ukraine. They have every right and a responsibility to defend their own national boundaries. They have every right and responsibility to defend their own safety and security, to maintain their sovereignty. But of course, the cards are not in their favor, given the fact that they don't have nuclear arms and therefore cannot remain a sovereign nation in the current order of the world. But most people, I think most people either fall into a more like hardliner camp on this issue. I'm not pro-Russia in any capacity, and I think it's utterly unjustifiable what Russia has done in Ukraine, completely. Now, the reason why a lot of people have this kind of resistance towards what I'm saying is because I think that they've just mostly fallen for clip chimps. It's another instance of like, it's the same principle behind like people that look to my takes on Palestine, where I was correct, but too early for their own taste. So they just have like refused to reckon with that. So they just go, oh man, like it's much easier for me to believe that he was just like pro-Palestine, but not in the right way. Okay? He's just not pro-Palestine in the right way. He was like into terrorism. He must be anti-Semitic. And it's the same as like people being like, oh, he's not pro-Ukraine in the right way, or he's not pro-Ukraine at all. He's pro-Russia, as a matter of fact. There's never been a moment where I've ever fucking approached subject from a pro-Russian lens at all. Same goes for China as well. I'm very critical of, obviously, the things that the Chinese government does that I think are unfavorable and unfathomable in certain instances, but it doesn't matter. That doesn't get across to people. The nuance of this conversation is lost because people want black and white narratives. Personal favors, he's a socialist for pussy. Yeah, that's another fun one. I've seen a lot of people say you're pro-Russia because of your Crimea take. Yeah, what's my Crimea take? Me saying Crimea belongs to the Ottoman Empire first and foremost, or saying Crimea River? That's what that's the entirety of my Crimea take. Again, not a single person ever actually looks at what I have said about Crimea and instead just relitigates the same fucking like totality of 8 seconds with like 3 to 5 second clip chimps that are slapped together. It's more, no one ever addresses the things that I present, the evidence that I present when talking about what has taken place in Crimea. The simplest example I can give you is, as far as Crimea goes, there's a difference between the way that Russia came in and illegally annexed Crimea as opposed to the way that Russia has illegally invaded the rest of Ukraine. Okay? And the Crimea conversation is no longer even anything but an afterthought at this point anyway, because the American government has already entertained the legal recognition of Crimea as annexed Russian territory, and that's not even a contentious point in the negotiations at this in this process. The contentious point is whether or not Russia gets to take over even more territory that it hasn't militarily conquered in eastern Ukraine. They can't never elaborate. They just say your anti-Semitic takes or your terrorist takes, but they can't never quote what exactly you've done or the context of the situation. Of course. You seem to downplay how much Ukraine's failure is a result of the Trump admin coming in and fucking their support. No, it's not a downplaying. It's an accurate assessment of events that unfolded far before Donald Trump came into office. This is, I think, what maybe liberals are trying to arrive at. They're saying like any moment the victory was imminent for Ukrainian defenses, and then Trump came in and fucked it up. Did Trump actually accelerate? Certainly. I do agree with that. He did. He accelerated the situation in favor of Russia, 100%. No one could argue against that. Having said that, however, the Russian invasion, after the imminent failure, like the immediate failure, failing to destroy all of Ukrainians' anti-aircraft defenses and failing to take over the capital, ultimately through a battle of attrition, quickly turned into one that favors Russia. And in the process, a lot of people died. And Russia simply had more manpower that they could throw at the problem than Ukraine could. So the overall gap that Ukraine had with respect to like weapons, for example, or tech, or the limitations that Western powers actually put on Ukrainians and how they could use the tech that was given to them, I'm not so certain that would have made up for Russia just simply throwing as many humans into the battle lines and forcibly, through incredibly violent initiatives, push the battle lines directly into eastern Ukraine and then hardening their position every step of the way. Ultimately, the battle lines here are determined, or ultimately what will happen next in Ukraine will be determined by what happens on the field of battle. And that has favored the Russian position for quite some time, long before Trump came into office, as a matter of fact. I don't know where the pivotal change took place, but I think, like, for my estimation, what I saw as like this is over, my like this is over moment was probably the failed counteroffensive. That was, and then what completely solidified it was October 7, where America had to, you know, give its most valuable ally all of the weapons and all of the attention and all of the intelligence. So it's not a matter of, it's not even a matter of Trump coming in and just fucking up the bag for Ukraine or whatever. It's just like, it's not necessarily that, like, it's not even entirely Trump's fault, which is crazy for me to say because, you know, I'm obviously a very loud and outspoken critic of Donald Trump. But I think this is, I guess this, I see it as a failure of U.S. foreign policy broadly, which is oftentimes uniparty anyway, at least on the broader strokes of it all. Owns a house, fake socialist, feels more like Russia is just doing what it wants in spite of Trump instead of it being Trump's failure. Oh, yeah, no, that is what it is, for sure. Absolutely. Russia is doing exactly what it wants in spite of Donald Trump's attempts, because Donald Trump's a fucking idiot who thinks that Vladimir Putin actually respects him. That much is clear, because if that wasn't the case, I think he wouldn't have undermined our proxy in this, the Ukrainian leadership, so aggressively on the global stage. That was crazy to me.
That you would
anyway,
have.
let's get back to Mamdani. Come on.
But what are you going to do about public safety in New York? I mean, is there a responsibility that you would have to actually make the city safer for New Yorkers, to address those concerns that are very real?
Absolutely. That is one of my primary responsibilities. And it's interesting that you actually mentioned Baltimore, because you can see in Baltimore that they've managed to bring down the number of homicides and shootings through an understanding of the very different tools you have to implement to actually confront the scourge of gun violence. Here in New York City, I would work alongside the NYPD to create that public safety and also invest in existing infrastructure we have here that is not at the full scale it could be. Infrastructure that has been shown to reduce shootings by up to 40%, and it goes by the name of the crisis management system.
You know, you've said you wanted to debate Donald Trump. A lot of people ask the question, are you and Donald Trump more similar than maybe you might want to let on? And specifically on this issue of socialism, even Trump's own allies, his fellow Republicans like Rand Paul, have suggested that some of his policies are socialist in nature. He took a stake in Intel in exchange for U.S. government funding.
Donald Trump is not a socialist. He is, that is crazy. Oh my God. This country is so busted, dude. I don't know what to say. It's just maybe a national socialist, and those guys weren't socialist at all. As a matter of fact, quite a lot of similarities with Adolf Hitler and Donald Trump. A